This is Daniel from Sinephony, and you're listening to Pixelated Audio, episode 131, 1980X.
Welcome to Pixelated Audio, a podcast focusing on game audio, its history, and the people behind it.
Yeah, we're your hosts. I'm Brian, and this is Gene. And today we're joined by two special guests from Swedish audio production studio, Sinephony, Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It's great.
Yeah, we're happy to have you guys. And we have a special, it's kind of like a two-part episode. Today we're going to be talking about a game called 198X, which was released around this time last year in 2019. And we'll also be chatting with Sinephony again in our next episode when we discuss the soundtrack to another very special game with a very special soundtrack called Airport CEO. And with that out of the way, again, welcome to the show. And could you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and Sinephony?
Yeah, so me and Anton, we met in high school in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden, in the cold north here. And me playing bass and Anton playing piano. And we found each other because we'd love game music even back then. And this was back in 2007, I think. So we actually started a video game cover band called Monkey Kong, which is super awesome. And obviously we were the coolest people in the school.
Yeah.
Everyone else played like rock or, some cool genre. And we were like, hey, we're going to play video game music. But it was awesome. And so we played our whole high school experience, which was 3 years. And that's how we met.
Then we broke up the band.
Yeah, like every good band. Yeah, exactly.
At the peak of your popularity, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was too much money, too much, booze.
Too much fame, I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what happens.
Can only go downhill from there, so to speak.
Oh, man. So you guys started in high school, and how long have you been doing it to this point?
We didn't start our business, our composing duo in high school, actually. It was just a band. And then we had a period when we went different routes. Daniel went to Japan and studied composition, and I studied some jazz piano. And then we both came back to our hometown of Stockholm and sat down over coffee and thought it would be awesome to start making some game music together. And that's basically how it started. And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So you guys are your company is relatively new.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. So Daniel, you went to Japan to study music specifically for game audio or just composition in general?
No, it was definitely for game audio. I'd studied composition here in Sweden after high school. I went to a 2-year school of music composition in Gotland, which is an island out of Sweden. And I always brought with me Japanese film music and Japanese game music, like the sheet music. And I asked the teachers to explain to me why it sounded like it did. And I think they could help me some part of the way, but they were always like, oh, but if you really want to learn this, you should go to Japan. So I studied Japanese 1 year at the university here in Stockholm, and then 1 year Japanese there. And then I went to a school there called HAL Tokyo, which is like a game school.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we talked about that company on our show before, or
really?
that school before. I'm
really?
positive
Cool.
We did. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great school. And actually, a friend of mine, who you guys probably know, is Ludwig Forsell, who did.
Yes, Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yes, obviously, and the newest Kojima game. I forgot the name.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding. Yeah.
Death Stranding. Yes.
Yeah. So actually, and I think this was before he had done Metal Gear Solid 5, but he and I Skyped a couple years ago, and he told me about the school, and I was super excited because obviously it had went really well for him. So yeah, we just talked about the school. So I was either I was going to go to that school, or I was thinking about going to a university there, which is more academic, I guess, and maybe more theoretical. And whereas HAL is very focused on the game industry and how to get a job and Japanese business manners and all those stuff. So in the end, I chose that path.
Well, it says you also studied under Kenichiro Fukui, who's a former Konami and Square Enix composer. I was actually just listening to Lethal Enforcers yesterday. How was that?
Cool. Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, he's one of the members of Black Mages, know about Matsu's band.
Oh yeah.
He's a keyboard player there. No, he is, Fukui Sensei is awesome, and he taught me so much on... I mean, Japanese people in general, I would say, if I can be that generalizing, they're very focused on what you should do. So coming from Sweden, I had a very kind of artistic school that I went to that was very open, and you should really express yourself and blah 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 blah. So my hardest thing in composition has always been form, writing forms and knowing how long you should make a verse or a chorus before you finish. And I just remember the first day coming to Fukui Sensei and asking him about forms, and he was like, well, in game music it's not a problem because the songs is not that long, so that was it basically, because yeah. So that was the end of the discussion. Yeah. So you don't need to know that much forms because it's not used that much in game music anyway. So it's yeah.
You're very strict.
Yeah. No, he's super cool, and we still talk today on Facebook, and he's a really cool guy.
Awesome. So, Anton, I pulled this from the website. You mentioned that you're a jazz pianist, and you've been active in the jazz scene in Sweden, and you've toured all over the world. What can you tell us about your experiences there and how you bring sort of that piece to your video game music composition?
Yeah, well, it's for me, it's I don't know. I tend to see it's as the same thing, playing, especially when it's come to jazz music, when it's a lot of improvising. It's kind of just composition but sped up, But also as a jazz pianist, I wrote my own music and composed stuff, and I think it's all gives to composing for video games as well. And also I not just play jazz, I play all styles of music, and that has helped me a lot as well to compose video game music, because it could be, one day it could be rock music and another day it can be jazz. So, and as a pianist, of course, when you compose music, you have a MIDI keyboard, and you can just, put it in the brass or in the strings, and it's super easy and fast. So I compose intuitively that way, always via the keyboard. So being good at piano has helped everything, I guess, when it comes to composing.
I think that is an accurate statement, because everything I hear about people who have started on piano as that foundation for their music background usually can branch off to other styles of music, or actually doing composition, because they understand the linearity of the keyboard and how you can kind of map out music in a sense, rather than somebody who started maybe with the saxophone or something. I hear that a lot. So
yeah, right, yeah.
It's for sure a more visual instrument. It's kind of logical compared to other instruments.
That makes sense.
So it helped a lot, and after a while you get a good speed on composing.
Nice. So real quick, let's talk about that track we came in with, Welcome to Suburbia. You guys composed this. Is kind of it's not really the intro to the game, but we thought it was the most fitting for the intro to this episode. I thought it was an awesome, like very 1980-ish feel. Like that, you guys captured that whole time period, I think, really, really well in this. It sounded like some just really great kind of like time cop movie or something.
Thank you. No, I mean, that's a great compliment, obviously, because, you know, we really, you know, for a couple of months, you know, we only listened to 80s music a lot, like, you know, so many different, you know, artists and bands and whatever. And when I hear that track, I hear a lot of Pet Shop Boys, obviously, you know, and what instruments they used and the reverb and all that stuff. It really, we tried to bring it together, mix wise also, and, you know, with the instruments.
It definitely came through, you know, and for listeners who don't know about the game, we'll go into it later, but there's sort of this meta story where it's in the 1980s and you're a kid that's playing through these arcade games. This is music more of the time period, I guess. It's very meta.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that was, I think, the goal for us, for sure.
So, yeah, but in terms of 80s music, I mean, I've always listened to that stuff. So it's like, even though we didn't grow up with it, I think it comes intuitively almost. When I know how they tend to write music back then. They played a lot of songs on the piano, so...
Yeah, there's definitely a style in how you play it that's quite easy to capture once you know how to do it.
You have to listen to it and get it down. Of course, it's not, but you know, it's like any other music, basically.
So, what was the thought behind this track? Could you tell us a little bit about "Welcome to Suburbia," like the process, I guess, for writing this track?
Yeah, well, it's kind of. How did it start, actually? I think it was Tobias, the producer of the game, that told us that he wanted this kind of song and gave us some references. One of those was a particular Pet Shop Boys song, but other songs as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so we had some reference tracks from the producer, but we always try to, you know, make something unique, so it doesn't only feel like a copycat, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I don't remember specifically this track, but... The producer Tobias had some great ideas, and me and Anton were both born in 1991, so we didn't get to experience the 80s, unfortunately. So, I mean, but Tobias is a bit older. I think he's like maybe born in the 70s, early 70s. Yeah. So he definitely was a kid and growing up in the 80s. So he had some clear directions when it came to the 80s, you know, for sure, growing up with it.
I think I do remember now, actually. It was, in the context of the game, it's like a walking scene. It's a kid that walks through his town, childhood.
His or her, we should say.
His or her, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so then he was. I remember now. He said like, yeah, we want something that, you know, that this kid could have in his earphones, his or her earphones.
Yeah, the headphones. Yeah, so it's a very nice. It's a very poppy, obviously, and we try to, you know, compared to the rest of the soundtrack. That's more, you know, scory and kind of, you know, background music. This was clearly supposed to be a pop song that just was missing the lyrics, I guess.
Yeah, I had to sound from that era, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
You made a good point about how it's really important to kind of think about the what the character is going through in a lot of this. And the game lays out a lot of really cool cutscenes that have just fantastic graphic style to them that kind of harkens back to games of the 80s and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and jump forward to our next track here. And this is kind of the first area that you get into, and it is kind of the final fight stage. This is Beating Heart, the final fight, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg. So let's take a listen and we'll be right back.
That was Beating Heart, the final fight, the first game in the game by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg.
Oh, the energy in this is so awesome. This track is what got me like, so I hadn't really heard of the game, in fact, like until Gene was like, hey, you know, we're going to do Airport CEO. Take a listen to the soundtrack. We really got to look at this. And so I listened. This track was the first one I heard, and I was like, oh man, we have to cover this one as well. It's so much energy. It really, those wailing guitars just do it for me. I think that's just where everything really just hits home.
It's distilled 1980s rock. It sounds like, you know, You've Got the Touch for all of those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Love it, man. Thank you so much.
So tell us about this track.
Yeah, I think, was this one of the first one we did, if I remember correctly?
One of the first.
Yeah, one of the first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for us, it was, you know, we tried to capture game music, obviously, from the era, but we wanted to do something that also, like, captured rock music at the time.
Yeah, more popular rock, like.
Yeah, Europe and...
this hair metal kind of thing.
Yeah, Van Halen, those kind of things. Yeah. So, it was definitely a mixture of everything. And, you know, as you said, like, energy-wise, it needed to be intense. Like, this was the first stage you were going into, so you know you really wanted to play it to feel like, oh shit, something's gonna go down, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
especially if it's something like a Final Fight type clone or
Streets of Rage
kind of thing.
Yeah.
You really need to like sell it.
Yeah, no,
so
exactly. Right.
I think it worked out.
Yeah, you're up for a competition, and if you're gonna be compared to those games, you really have to bring it, like your A game. Yeah. So I mean, the thing that I like about it is, I think, if I should pat myself on the back in some way, I think we managed to capture something feeling simple melody-wise, but actually like there's a lot of stuff going on, and you know, we put so much energy into this and so much heart into the song, and you know, worked a lot on it.
Yeah, we love this. We love this kind of music, even though it's kind of cliche, but we love this kind of stuff, and hopefully
that's like
true.
Everything from like the 80s is pretty cliche. I mean,
yeah,
like,
right.
You guys fit right in. It worked.
At this point, it's all been done to death, but you guys had a really nice take on it. And actually, one thing I wanted to compliment you on is, you know, the easy choice with game music would have been to write a minute and then repeat it, but it sounds like you guys had a lot of through composed music in this track. So if it's 3 minutes, it's roughly 3 minutes of music, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. And that was something, you know, that we knew kind of from the beginning, that we were gonna give quite a lot of space, you know, memory wise also to the game. Like in the game, like everything is uncompressed WAV files, so it's like, I think probably the game is half of it, the space of the game is probably the audio. And I don't know if that's like a rookie mistake from Tobias' side, or is, you know, he just didn't want to compress it. And we were giving so much freedom when it came to forms. So even if maybe I don't remember the game exactly at the moment, but let's say you could beat the game 1 minute, but if we wanted to do a 3-minute song, that would be a problem. So yeah, that was awesome.
As long as it fits on a CD-ROM, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the gold standard still today. Still today.
So let me go through the game real quick. We haven't really mentioned it too much, but 198X is an arcade epic, a coming-of-age story told through multiple games and genres, worlds, and characters. Experience the thrill of shooting, driving, jumping, fighting, and role-playing, combined with emotional, cinematic storytelling. This is a love letter from the golden age of arcade games, with a scope that was never possible in the actual 80s, and that is a quote from the website. The game was developed by Swedish devs Hybit Studios and published by Hybit and Sanka. It was originally a Kickstarter project, and it was released in June of 2019, and it's currently available for Windows, Mac, Switch, and PS4. And correct me if I'm wrong on those dates. I've seen a lot of conflicting times on that, but I think it was about a year ago, and Switch was early this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Sounds about right.
So the game is a series of, like Gene said, it's a series of mini games that, or I wouldn't say mini games.
I mean, they're short. The whole game is about an hour long. Yeah.
Right. So
they are short for sure.
Yeah, it's a series of these kind of shorter games within a game. And like I mentioned earlier, the cutscenes and the emotional impact that is being conveyed is probably the most memorable part of the game, in my opinion. I don't know what your guys' take on it is, but I thought the just like walking through the streets and seeing these characters, these very beautifully hand-drawn pixel, art characters, it was really, really cool. It's very dark, very gritty, very city pop mixed with like Miami Vice. And I really appreciate that about the style that they tried to put together for this. So I think the music really accompanies each of these different games within the game, and wanted to talk to you guys about how early on in development. So because this was a Kickstarter, how did the process work out where you guys were involved in it and were contacted about this? Did you personally know the people at High-Bit Studios, or was this something just like they found you randomly?
Yeah, no, actually, like a friend of mine worked at High-Bit, so like a friend that I knew for a long time posted on his Facebook page, basically saying like, hey, we're working on this cool game, and if you want to back us up, that'd be cool. And I just love the premise of the game, mixing 80s and video games and the scene. And I knew like this guy is a great storyteller as well, so I knew it was going to be really awesome. So I just told him like, if there's any way we could be any part of it, if you just need one song or whatever, I'd be glad to help you out. So in the beginning we just sent some demos, and they liked it a lot. So in the beginning we were only going to do like 5 tracks or something, but yeah, it grew from that basically.
That's awesome.
Did any of the demos make it into the final game?
Yeah, actually they did. I think the Out of the Void songs, or the first song, that was the pitch.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was
perfect, because that's the next stuff we're gonna play.
What a great transition.
Wow.
Yeah. So Out of the Void is, so the first part was kind of like the final fight, bare knuckle Street to Rage style game, and then the second game in the game is Out of the Void, which is a horizontal shooter. So we're gonna play 2 tracks. We'll play the intro because it's very short, and then we'll play we'll stop for a minute, and then we'll play stage 1-1, and this is from 1908X, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg. All right, that was Out of the Void, the intro. I was mistaking that for another one. I thought that was the shorter one, but that was like about 2 minutes long. I really like this track. It's very almost like barren.
Yeah.
Being kind of by yourself and just not knowing where the next step you need to take is.
It has a really nice yearning melody right at the end, though, which is I really, it very much feels like a cutscene. You're watching the classic 80s. Oh, you're the last ship in your battalion. Go rescue the people.
Yeah, nice. the melody in the end is actually the main melody in the next song, stage 1 as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one. So yeah, it's,
well, let's go ahead and listen to stage 1-1.
yeah,
Nice.
awesome.
We'll talk more about it.
Awesome.
All right, that was Out of the Void, stage 1-1, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg.
I can definitely see the intro, how it bleeds into this track. And I like that. The thing is, I was listening to this. So I like to go on long bike rides and kind of just, you know, mentally escape. And I was listening to this whole album like several times on repeat. And I remember this track. I was going down by the lake area, and everything felt right. And like the grittiness of this track just made me like push even harder. I had my heart rate like to 190. It was great.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's perfect.
Felt like I was gonna puke a little bit, but it was awesome.
Oh, nice.
You know what I really like that you guys have done is that the 80s tunes, the sort of in-between stuff, has a more synth-like quality, whereas the game stuff definitely has a bit of a degraded chiptune quality to it. I mean, I know that's probably appropriate, but it just shows that like you really do feel like there's a strong contrast between the in-game stuff versus the external atmospheric stuff. Yeah,
it's for sure. That's of course what we wanted to do to make the game sounds like classic game music, but with a twist. We mixed some more modern stuff and some older ships, and it's not accurate when it comes to this ship is from this machine. And we only use this.
We mixed freely.
Yeah, we mixed freely and used a lot of distortion and saturation and all that stuff to make it somewhat modern, but still like a game. So.
Yeah, that's actually something that seems true of the game. One thing I noticed is, you can't obviously see the graphics when you're listening to an interview, but the game isn't trying to be super accurate in the sense of like this is what a 16-bit game would have looked like. There's a lot of modern pixel art techniques. And was that directly from the dev? Like, did you want to mirror that sort of approach, or were you given pretty free rein in how you approach the music otherwise?
we actually was given free reign, and they, you know, as you said, they mixed the graphic and we mixed all the kinds of chips and cards and stuff. So that was very much planned out to be that way. And the pixel artists are, of course, amazing. Shout out to them. They have some really talented people from all over the world just freelancing.
Yeah, I think like it definitely tries to be late 80s, early 90s, I would say, like, you know, in that era with new consoles. So looking back at it, I would say it's very, how do you say, romanticized. Like it's a romanticized view on how it was. Like
it's the way that we remember it looking,
right.
Even though that's not how it was.
Exactly right. It didn't look that good. It didn't sound that good. It wasn't possible because like we probably have at some points like 40, 50 tracks, and that wasn't possible at the time. So it's a romanticized view, and that was very much intentional from the beginning. Like we wanted it to look and sound as good as it could.
Right. So I wanted to ask, you said that you were brought in kind of midway into the Kickstarter, right?
Right.
How soon were you given graphics or visual aid to help you with your composition? Was the game finished when you guys got to start working on it? Like how were you brought into the fold on that regard?
Yeah, no, I mean, we had some arts definitely finished, but most of the game wasn't, I would say. I mean, the concept was there and the storyline was there, but, you know... Like,
go play Outrun, like, 20 times and then write some music.
Yeah, no, exactly, right. And I think, you know, in some ways, the music was done earlier before the game itself was done. So, you know, it was cool to be a part of the process, definitely. Because, you know, organically, we really could inspire each other, I think. The graphic artists could listen to music and vice versa, so...
Oh, yeah. No, I can see that being a big influence on the graphics team, too.
Yeah,
because,
hopefully.
You know, really getting into that mood is... we talk so much about game audio, but we always talk about the graphics a little bit, too, because there's so much kind of back and forth. Even if the process was way after the fact, there's so much kind of hand-holding between the two to kind of marry the different ideas of what you're seeing and what you're hearing. It's really interesting to see, like, a different take from maybe the... graphics guys perspective, you know, like, oh, you know, we had to really kind of like, you know, digest all this music and really get that feel to illustrate what we wanted to do. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's so important to have that. And I recently watched an interview with the composer for Joker. She's an Icelandic composer. I can't remember her name, but the Joker movie, the recent one with Heath, not Heath Ledger, but Joaquin Phoenix, of course. And she talked about, you know, creating the melody for the character and how it's supposed to be intertwined with the character and not something that's separate from the character. And I think that's a really good point to make. Like, you want the music to feel like a part of it and not just a separate track, right? So yeah. That's really interesting.
I wanted to ask a quick question. Did you already know which game genres were going to be included when you started writing the music, or was that decided a little later?
It was all decided beforehand. So
got it.
If the game wasn't there, the graphic wasn't there, and nothing playable, we still, you know, had check out these games. It was like games like Outrun and R-Type, I think. And then those kind of games. So we had existing games to be referenced as it's going to be something like this, you know. And
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's obvious. I imagine.
I was just thinking they could have given you a reference about Harold Heartland or something like that.
No.
The game about teeth. Yeah,
that's a
we've done an episode. We did an episode about a toothpaste mascot. It's a running joke now. Don't worry about it.
That's
sorry.
Awesome.
I had to bring it up.
I want to play it now.
I saw it on the episode list as well.
You could write. Sorry, I had to squeeze that in there.
Let's go into our next and last track from Out of the Void. This is the boss tune.
All right, that was the boss track from Out of the Void, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg.
Classic Konami boss theme right there.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, tell us a little bit about this track.
Yeah, so we wanted to do a boss track that, I guess, invoked fear in the player. It's super intense and it's a lot of things happening. And I mean, I can't hide the fact that, this is very, very inspired by the boss theme in Secret of Mana. Like the falling and everything. And at the end, there's like a very kind of, how do you say, heroic melody. But that didn't make the cut in the game. That's like, that's played when you actually defeat the boss in the game. Originally, I kind of wanted that theme to be part of the boss theme, because I think in Secret of Mana it's so cool that this super heroic theme appears right in the middle of the boss track. So yeah, I kind of want to do that thing, or sorry, it's not only me.
It's okay.
Thank you. Well, I usually am the one who takes credits for things, but, yeah.
So it's basically playing with the contrast of having a kind of atonal, kind of chromatic figure like chaotic, and then go into a very beautiful and heroic melody, basically. So that's what we wanted to do with that boss, and also make it sound like the boss is basically a cyborg. So it's like we played around with that, trying to make it feel like a robotic, evil robotic. So
yeah, the arpeggios are very super stiff in one sense.
That makes sense. Kind of give that feeling of anxiety or just uncertainty. Yeah. I like that. I think that this is one of the few like actual bosses or classic bosses in the game too.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I'm sure that having really kind of only this track to work with really had to hit it home.
Exactly. Right. For sure.
All right. So the next game on the list is the outrun-like racer called The Runaway. So we're going to play the short intro, followed by the first stage track titled Route 86. That was the intro and Route 86 from the Runaway from the game 198X, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg.
This is a really awesome way to start the game or this section of the game, because you get that it's almost like pole position, the little jingle there, and then the sound of that really kind of opening synth to simulate the car engine is just so man, it just gets your heart racing and just ready to rock. And this doesn't have the Route 86 doesn't really have like the classic Barry Leach style, like Top Gear style. It really does kind of have more of an outrun dueling guitar battle kind of thing, and I love that, and I feel like it fits so well with this style.
I gotta ask though, that intro was a classic Matt Gray thing. Did Tobias send you over some classic C64 tunes on that?
I don't remember how it was, but I think it was. Of course, you're right about the motor sound. I remember that being said, at least. It would be cool if it sounded like an engine. So maybe, and we did something with that. So I don't remember specifics, but I remember that at least.
Awesome, yeah. So tell us how you got into just creating the sound of this racer. Now, I mean, you guys are so divided in this game, how you have to think about the next track. You have these little sections, but now you went from a beat 'em up to a shooter and now a racing game. Like, how did you get your mindset for this?
This one was kind of free in terms. We basically said, hey, write what you want, and we sort of landed in some kind of rock thing. It was more slower paced from the beginning. I remember it was like more roots rock. It would basically make it sound like a desert, but it became more up tempo in the end and more shred stuff, and a solo in the end, and all that stuff. And I don't know, that's basically it. So we try to mimic guitars, of course, the riffs and all that kind of stuff, and match the pacing of the car as well to make it sound.
Yeah, I think we composed the riff first, and then everything just fell into place after that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a classic early 90s race tune. I mean, it fits with all the Top Gear, Outrun, all that stuff that I know we grew up playing a lot of. So, one question that we have is there's a lot of versatility and just different styles of music. How did you guys split up the work and how you wrote the tracks for this game?
I think we divided it up. So I started some of the tracks and Anton started some of the tracks, and then we send ideas to each other and try to get feedback. And when we had the rough sketch of a track, we tried to bring it together, I guess, in a sense. So I mean, there was a lot, as you said, there's so many different styles of music. So
in some cases it was like that. In some cases we did everything together as well, like creating songs from scratch. I remember the final fight, for example. I remember we sat together and basically wrote from the beginning. But me and Daniel, we have different strengths, so we try to divide up the work to our strengths and all that. So I think it's kind of good way to work that way, because we got different abilities.
No, that makes sense. And, actually, you mentioned that you have different strengths, and this is a question for both of you, but what are some of your influences, either not just for this game, but as composers?
Not like even the track, but just it in general.
Yeah, I mean, listen to the Out of the Void Stage 1. I remember listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails at the time, and I think, I don't know if you can hear that in the final product, but I remember just sitting with the drums for a long time. And if you listen closely to the hi-hat and the drums in that, I think you can really tell that it's super weird and a bit complex, actually. So I would say Nine Inch Nails has been a huge influence for me. It's always, and Trent Reznor, his original scores is something I always come back to. I think he did some amazing stuff recently on the Watchmen series on HBO. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Influences, I don't know. I try to listen to everything. Growing up, I listened to a lot of funk. That's why I started to play bass in high school. So I listened to a lot of funk and soul. Then I got into progressive rock, and The list is too long for me to say, but yeah.
That's how it usually goes.
I can't tell you how many times we've heard that exact same thing. And it's funny because we do a lot of interviews in Japanese too. And all the Japanese composers will say the same thing. The list is too long to say.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we only ever scratch the surface, but it's always good to hear what's on top of mind for people.
Yeah.
A fun shout out would be, at least when we did the final fight, I remember for some reason listened to the Rocky 3 soundtrack.
Yes, I do remember that now.
Nice.
Made by a guy called Vince DiCola, and he's like...
He's the 80s guy. I mean, he's the 80s guy.
Encapsulated 80s. And
he did a Transformer theme.
Yeah, the cartoon.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that. that one.
Yeah.
The cartoon Transformers one in the early 90s, I think.
And he didn't do Rocky 4. Is it Rocky 3?
Maybe Rocky 4.
I think so.
The training montage guy.
Yes, the training montage.
I was influenced when writing this kind of, especially Final Fight, that one. I really listened to him a lot during that period to get that down because it's so amazing.
I can recommend it to every listener out there to check him out. And he also did the Angry Birds Transformer soundtrack.
Yeah, that's true.
So, which is like,
wow,
it's so cool that they took him in to do that. Because I mean, if you want the 80s done, I shouldn't say this because obviously I want people to employ us. But if you really want the 80s thing done, you should go to him. For sure.
But of course,
his sound is iconic. I know exactly what you mean when you say that 80s montage music sound.
Big time. That's probably why this show exists, is because a lot of his music has been influenced by the other, or the game stuff has been influenced by his music. So.
Yeah.
Let's take a jump over to something a little different here. So the fourth game is an auto-scrolling hack and slash ninja game called Shadowplay. It's basically whatever you want to guess. Any of the ninja games, primarily Ninja Gaiden, but a lot of the tracks for this, including the one we're going to play right now, is composed by Yuzo Koshiro. And we want to get your guys' take on this. So let's listen to this one track here. This is The Cave from Shadowplay. That was Cave from Shadowplay, part of 198X, composed by Yuzo Koshiro. This is pretty awesome. What was your guys' take when you found out you're going to be doing a game that Yuzo Koshiro is going to be a part of as well?
We were super stoked, basically.
The guy is a legend, so cool.
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, like this, and you know, Gene and I were just talking about this a day or so ago when we were listening to some of the Koshiro tracks. We were like, man, you know, his style has been consistent for like 35 years, and like has not like, and it's always been good. You know, like he's gone through some experimental phases and had different kinds of music, but like consistently always on top of it.
Yeah, and especially like his Street of Rage soundtrack is, I mean, mixing so many different genres like house music, and I mean, it's so groundbreaking, and I can't stretch enough, you know, how much of a fan I am, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, everybody, Streets of Rage is kind of like the peak, but even the Entry and Odyssey games, which were released over the last decade, top notch, just amazing work. Yeah.
I mean, and he still works on the Smash Bros series, and you know, he's really at the top of his game still, and produced some amazing stuff. So working with him was awesome.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't fail. Like
no,
he's just constantly good. And in fact, even this soundtrack, or even the tracks that he's done in here, I mean, I can just picture him writing this out in MML on his PC-88, you know, OPNA sound card, and maybe mixing in like a chord or something like that. But like basically, like he's using the same stuff he used back in the 80s.
Yeah,
you know?
And if you go to his Twitter, he'll post those stuff all the time, like, you know, using those old stuff. It's so cool. And
it's awesome.
We actually got the chance to meet him. He was in Stockholm, and you know, we had lunch with him and the whole team and us, and it was so amazing. And he's so generous with his knowledge, and the fact that, you know, he really shaped the sound of video game in the early 90s, because he's so good at, you know, programming. He really understands like how to program good sounds, and that was something I wasn't aware of before. Like I only knew him because of the music, but actually he was so much in the forefront of programming.
He's an engineer at the same time.
So he actually told me, like, when Nobumatsu heard one of his tracks, like he told him that, okay, I won't shave until I can, you know, reach the same level of audio as you did on the Super NES, on the Super Famicom. So, and he showed me a picture of a really beardy Nobumatsu, like he's really, and I also talked to my former teacher, Fukui Kenichiro sensei, and he told me like, no, but like Nobumatsu looks up to Koshiro so much, you know, when it comes to audio. He's like you know, of course, know what a senpai is, but he used the term dai senpai, which is like a big, you know,
like the one above the one.
Exactly. So, you know, that was super cool.
Did you actually work together directly with Koshiro on this one, or was it just he contributed his tracks?
No, he has contributed. We changed some emails, and we obviously talked. But, you know, we tried to incorporate some of his melodies in like the scene before this game. You can hear like a flute coming in at the end, and like, you know, incorporating that stuff.
Yeah,
but
when we were kids, it's called that track before. Right?
Yeah, but we didn't do anything more than that.
Had a great lunch with him, though.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Nice guy. Very nice guy.
Yeah, there's another composer that did a few tracks on the game early on by the name of U.F.L. Can you guys tell us about this artist?
Yeah, we never met him basically, and we know his name is Ulf. It's one guy, so it's his real name is U.F.L, but he's called U.F.L. And I think he's a good friend of the producer Tobias. We didn't know about him, but you know, he writes beautiful tracks. And very fitting for the scenes. Yeah,
so he was someone that was involved before us and write the music for the first trailer, the Kickstarter trailer, and stuff like that. So cool. They used some of those tracks.
I think he's a good guitar player from the beginning, and as you hear, he has a lot of guitar in his tracks there in the game. But yeah, really good music. Never met him though, but I guess it's nice.
Yeah,
maybe one day.
We couldn't find anything Googling, so we wanted to make sure if you knew
anything. Right.
No, it's kind of secretive. I don't know.
I think he's just a hobby musician that does it from time to time. So
maybe.
Oh, that's cool though.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
And then especially that the tracks are in the game. Let's move on to the fifth and final game. It's a first-person dungeon crawling RPG, kind of like Wizardry-ish.
Sort of, yeah.
And it's called Kill Screen. And the track we're going to play is from the final boss of the entire game, called Motherboard. So let's take a listen to Motherboard from 198X. That was Motherboard from Kill Screen in 1908X, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist and Anton Dromberg. This is a lot of fun.
You know what I love about this track is it feels like the world, the real world of 1980s and the video game are kind of crossing over. There's like the 80s synth elements and the chip elements, and it even ends at the very end with like the computer crashing. It's a great touch.
Apart.
That's exactly what we thought of. It's like that whole game is kind of important to the story when it all it kind of blends. So it has to do that with the music as well. A kind of fun story with this song in particular is that it's one of not very often it happens, but this time I think we made about 8 different songs.
Yeah, it
before we settled for one, and they were all different, like super different songs.
Do you guys still have those?
Yeah, the other versions, yeah, probably.
Yeah, they're saved.
Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna have to send those over.
Okay.
I would love to hear.
Sure, we can do that. So after a long kind of period with this, we finally decided with this one, and it's got all these glitch elements that are in the game before, like very glitch inspired things. So you're basically trying to combine all those things, and and
it's just like Anton said, it's all about the story. The story is that kid is discovering the arcade hall, and basically the real world versus the arcade world is trying to merge together. They're starting to merge together. So I think this track is really, all about that. You hear the glitches, and suddenly the world doesn't make any sense, and you hear the voice of Motherboard saying, shouting different stuff at you, and I don't remember exactly, but it's like stuff like go to bed. You shouldn't play this game. You should go to bed. You should stop wasting your life, and it's like super harsh stuff.
It's basically like all of our moms.
Yeah,
combined.
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I love it. Any closing thoughts about 1908X?
Yeah, no, I mean this is supposed to be the Act 1 of 1908X, so there's definitely much more to come, I hope.
Well, if that's the case, this is Act 1 of this 1908X pixelated audio episode.
Yeah, exactly. We have to jump back in after we finish Act 2 as well.
Yeah, it was a super fun project. We learned a lot, and working with this kind of classic game sounds, it was a very learning experience for us. And
I mean, and shout out to the great team at Hybrid Studios. I mean, Tobias is a legend when it comes to the game industry in Sweden. Like he's founded different like game magazines, and like been a part of that since the early 90s, and being the driving force of some of the biggest game magazines in Sweden. So
don't forget the museum.
Yeah, exactly. They have the Stockholm Game Museum as well. So if you guys ever come to Stockholm, that's the way to go.
Maybe once Americans are loud back in your country, then I guess we can.
I was just there a few years ago. I wish I'd known about that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, you should definitely come.
Awesome. Well, today we covered 1908X on the PC, Mac, PS4, and Switch, composed by Daniel Rosenqvist, Anton Dromberg, Yuzo Koshiro, and U.F.L. or Ulf. And if you guys want to know more about the show, you can check us out online at pixelatedaudio.com for show notes and the track list. We can also be found on Twitter at Pixelated Audio, and in Discord, you can find the link on our website.
And where can people find the music for 1908X to either listen to or to purchase?
You can find it on Spotify and all different music platforms. You can also buy it on Bandcamp, I believe.
No, on Steam you can buy it.
On Steam you can buy it.
Not on Bandcamp.
Sorry, not on Bandcamp.
I know it's also available on vinyl from I Am 8-Bit, but I don't know if it's sold out.
I think they made like 500 copies. I don't know. It's a really great album artwork, so you should check that out. But I'm not sure if they're still available. You can check it out on I Am 8-Bit if they're still there.
Awesome. So if any of the listeners want to leave feedback or comments on this episode, you can do so on the website or give us an iTunes review. That would be appreciated. We are going to have Anton and Daniel back for our next episode, so make sure to check that out. It's going to be all about the Airport CEO game. It's a very different kind of music, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, Daniel, Anton, thank you so much for spending time with us today to chat about your work on 19.8x. Had a blast talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to take the show out with 2 tracks, essentially. There is The Game Was Not Over, and It Was Just the Beginning.
Right.
And any last remarks you want to make about these 2 tracks here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna play the last track,
the last 2 tracks.
Yeah, the last 2 tracks. Yeah, so it's basically a version of the kill screen chords, the arpeggio kind of thing there. So it's like a callback to that. And
this is at the point of the game where you finished Motherboard and things are glitching out. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling stuff now. You should probably play it by yourself. But it's basically like you finish the game and you realize that the gaming world and the real world has started to merge together, but this is not the end, this is only the beginning. So it has this dramatic climb to the drumming part of the track, and then it goes over to the much more minimalistic and much more mellow part, I guess, which is the credits for the game, which is obviously very long because it's a Kickstarter, so it had to be quite long for that. Yes, exactly. It
had to be long
to fit all the names.
Awesome. So this is The Game Was Not Over, and ... It was just the beginning. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you back in the next week or so for the next episode featuring Airport CEO.